The market was alive with strange voices, a chorus of alien tongues mixing in the air. Creatures from many worlds moved between stalls, their shapes and colors strange, their eyes cold. Cages lined the dusty street, and inside the cages were living beings, slaves for sale. Some were tall and strong, others small and frightened. But all wore the same look of hopelessness. In the middle of it all stood a girl. Her cage open, but no one stepping forward. Her body was thin, her feet bare on the hot stone ground, her arms wrapped around herself. She had no clothes, nothing to cover her, and the aliens around her laughed. "Look at this one," hissed. A merchant with green scales, no one would waste a single coin on her. The crowd laughed with him, sharp and cruel. Other slaves were pulled away by buyers' warriors, workers, and creatures bred for battle. But the girl was ignored, pushed to the side. She lowered her eyes, fighting back tears, though her lips trembled. No one saw her as a person, only as worthless cargo left to rot. The sun above the market burned red through the smoky air. The smell of oil, dust, and sweat was heavy. Traders shouted prices for weapons, cages, even food. But every time someone passed the girl, they either turned their head or spat in disgust. It was as if she was invisible, except for the cruel laughter that followed her. She tried to remember how she had come here, but her memory was broken. Shadows of faces, fragments of voices. Then, only pain and chains. She had been dragged from place to place, offered to buyers, who turned away, and now left in this market. She knew the truth. She was not wanted. Her heart pounded with fear. No one bought her. What would they do? Leave her to starve, or worse. Then a silence fell. The crowd shifted as someone entered the market. Not another alien with bright skin or sharp teeth, but a human, tall, with dark clothing and calm eyes that watched everything. Humans were rare here, and the merchant stopped. Shouting, curious, he walked slowly, as if nothing around him mattered. But his gaze was sharp. Cutting through the chaos like a blade, the girl lifted her head for the first time. Her eyes locked on him, and for a heartbeat, she felt something strange. Not kindness, not yet, but a sense of danger. A presence that was stronger than the others. The merchants moved closer to him, smiling in false welcome. "Traveler, you seek weapons. Strong slaves, rare beasts." They called out, but the human's eyes were not on them. He was looking at her. The laughter started again, cruel and loud. "Not that one, not her," shouted the scaly merchant. "She is useless. She cannot work. She cannot fight. She has nothing, not even clothes. Leave her. Worthless." Another barked. The girl's face burned with shame, her arms pulling tighter around herself. She wanted to vanish, to sink into the ground and never be seen again. But the human did not laugh. He stepped closer, his boots silent. On the stone, he looked at her, not with disgust, not with pity, but with a quiet focus, as if he was seeing something no one else could see. The girl's breath caught in her throat. Why was he looking at her? Why not walk away like the others? The merchants tried again, desperate to sell him something else. Here, a fighter from the war clans, strong, deadly. Or this one fast, clever, a spy by nature. Forget the broken girl, take one worth your coin. Tefuman shook his head slowly. His voice was calm, steady. "I'll take her." The market froze. Even the air seemed to stop moving. The laughter died into silence, and every alien stared in shock. The girl's eyes widened, her lips parting in disbelief. She had been sure no one would ever want her, and yet this human had spoken. He had chosen her. The merchant with green scales blinked, confused. "You want her? Worthless trash. You waste your credits, human." But the man only reached into his belt and placed cold silver coins in the merchant's hand. "No waste," he said. "She comes with me." He stepped forward, removed his jacket, and placed it around the girl's shoulders. For the first time, warmth touched her skin, not from the burning sun, but from kindness. The crowd murmured, some in disbelief, some in anger, but no one dared step closer. The girl stared at him, her voice small, shaking. Why? Why me? She whispered, but the human gave no answer yet. He only turned, his hand lightly guiding her away from the market. And as they disappeared into the shadows of the streets, the merchants whispered in fear, "What is he planning? Why? Would a human take her?" The girl did not know, and the fear in her chest still burned, but for the first time since her capture, a spark of hope glimmered. Maybe, just maybe, her story was not over. Maybe her story was just beginning. The girl walked beside the human, her small body hidden inside the jacket he had given her. The jacket was heavy, smelling of dust, leather, and something faintly metallic. Each step felt unreal lonely moments ago. She had been nothing, abandoned in the market. Now she was following a stranger through the crowded alien streets. The human did not speak much. His eyes moved from shadow to shadow. Watching everything, he walked with quiet strength, every step. Measured aliens moved out of his way without realizing why. Something about him made others uneasy, even without raising his hand, even without a weapon drawn. He carried danger with him. The girl held the jacket close, her voice breaking the silence. "Why? Why did you take me?" she asked. Her words were soft, shaking, as if she expected him to laugh at her too. But he did not laugh. He kept walking, only glancing down at her once before answering, because no one else would. She froze it. Those words, her heart stumbling, no one else would. It was true. But hearing it said aloud made her feel strange. Was it kindness or pity? Or was it something else she could not understand? They turned down a quieter street, the market noise fading behind them. The buildings leaned close, built from stone and metal, their walls scarred from age. Neon lights flickered in alien symbols. Half broken, the air was colder here, the shadows thicker. The human slowed his steps, his hand brushing against the weapon at his belt. He had noticed something. Though he did not say it aloud, the girl's bare feet made soft sounds on the ground. She tried to keep up, her body weak from hunger and days without rest, her stomach twisted, but she bit her lip and stayed silent. She did not want to anger him, not after he had given her warmth, not after he had saved her from the laughter of the merchants. Behind them, faint footsteps echoed. She turned her head, eyes wide, shapes moved in the shadows. Too quiet, too careful. Her heart raced. "Someone is following us," she whispered. The human did not look back, but his jaw tightened. "I know," he said, his voice calm. The girl's hand shook, gripping the jacket tighter. Are they coming for me?" she asked. The human finally stopped. He turned his head, scanning the street. His eyes were sharp, hard as steel. "They're not coming for me," he said, which meant only one thing. Yes. They were here for her. Fear rose inside her chest, choking her. Why? Why would anyone want her? The merchants had called her worthless, trash, nothing. So why follow her now? Why chase her into the dark streets? She almost asked him again, but the words would not come out. Her throat was dry, her breath uneven. The human placed a hand on her shoulder. "Steady and firm. Stay close," he said. His voice was not warm, but it carried weight. It made her feel, for a moment, that she was safe near him. The footsteps grew louder. Figures emerged from the shadows, 3 of them, tall and twisted, their faces hidden under masks they carried blades that shimmered faintly under the neon light. The girl stepped back, her heart hammering. But the human did not move away. He shifted slightly, placing himself between her and the masked figures. The street was narrow, no room to escape. One of the masked aliens spoke, his voice metallic and harsh. "Leave the girl," he ordered. "Walk away, human. This does not concern you." The girl's blood froze, her legs weak. She gripped the jacket tighter, staring at the ground. Would he give her up? Would he leave her like everyone else had? That was what she expected. Everyone always left, but the human's reply was simple. His voice low and steady. "She's with me." The three figures shifted, their blades glinting brighter. The air grew heavy, thick with the promise of violence. The girl pressed her back against the wall, her breath short. She wanted to scream, to run, but her body would not move. Her mind screamed one thought again and again. Why me? Why are they after me? The human did not draw his weapon yet. He stood tall, calm, his eyes locked on the attackers. "Last chance," he said softly. But they did not back away. Instead, one stepped forward, raising his blade, the human's. Hand moved in a blur, steel flashing under the neon, and in one motion, the attacker's weapon clattered to the ground. Cut in half, the other two froze, their masked faces turning to each other. The girl gasped, her eyes wide. She had not even seen him move. The human's blade was already back at his side, his stance unshaken. "Leave," he said again, his voice colder this time. The two remaining figures hesitated, then dragged their companion back into the shadows. The street grew silent once more, only the girl's ragged breaths filling the air. The human turned to her, his eyes calm again. "They won't trouble us now," Ati said. She stared at him, her lips trembling. You could have let them take me," she whispered. He looked at her for a long moment before answering. "I don't leave people behind." Her chest tightened, a warmth rising inside her chest that she did not understand. No one had ever said words like that to her before. For so long, she had been treated as nothing, less than nothing. But this human, this stranger, spoke as if her life mattered. They walked again, the shadows deeper now. Her fear was still there, but something new had joined it, hope, fragile but alive. The girl clung to the jacket, her steps unsteady. She did not know who this man was or why he had chosen her. But one truth burned inside her mind. Her story was changing, and there was no turning back. The city never slept, even as night fell. The streets glowed with broken neon lights and drifting smoke. Machines hummed in the distance, and the sky above burned with the trails of alien ships. The girl walked close behind the human, her bare feet silent on the cracked stone. The jacket he had given her was too large, hanging heavy, but it was the only warmth she had. Her eyes moved nervously from shadow to shadow. Every corner seemed dangerous, every sound a threat. She still could not understand why he had taken her. Why spend money on someone no one else wanted? Why fight masked hunters who demanded her? Nothing made sense, and the question burned inside her. Who am I to him? The human walked ahead, calm and steady. He did not speak unless he needed to. But she noticed how his eyes never rested, always scanning rooftops, alleys, and windows, every time a sound echoed too close. His hand brushed the weapon at his belt. It made her wonder if he had lived his whole life this way, always ready to fight, always watching. At last, she gathered courage, her voice small. "Why are they chasing me?" Her question floated in the air, fragile and weak. For a moment, she thought he would ignore it, but his eyes flicked toward her, sharp as a blade. "You don't know?" he asked. She shook her head quickly. "No, I don't remember." That was the truth. Her memory was broken, foggy, full of holes. Faces flashed in her mind, voices calling her name, chains biting into her wrists, the sound of cruel laughter. But everything else was lost. All she knew was that she had been passed from hand to hand until no one wanted her, and now, strangers were hunting her as if she mattered. The human studied her for a moment, then kept walking. "They're chasing you for a reason," he said simply. People don't risk blades in the dark for nothing. His words chilled her. A reason, if there was a reason. Then maybe the merchants had lied. Maybe she was not worthless. But if she was not worthless, then what was she? She hugged herself tighter, afraid of her own thoughts. Her stomach growled with hunger. Sharp and painful, the human noticed, though she tried to hide it. He stopped at a small shop lit by flickering blue lights. Inside, alien food steamed in metal trays. He tossed a few coins on the counter and handed her a piece of bread and something like roasted meat. "Eat," he said. She hesitated, staring at the food in her hands. It had been so long since anyone had given her something without mocking. Slowly, she ate, the taste plain but wonderful, for a moment. Warmth spread through her chest, not from the food, but from the strange feeling that she mattered. As they left the shop, the streets grew narrower, darker. The girl felt the silence pressing down. She whispered, "You could have left me there. You didn't have to fight for me." The human's reply was calm, almost cold. "I don't walk away from people, even if they're broken." His words stung and comforted her at the same time. Broken. Yes, that was what she was. But he had not left. Suddenly, a noise shattered the silence. The ground shook under their feet, metal clanging from above. The girl gasped, stepping back. Figures dropped from the rooftops, 4 of them, larger and stronger than the masked hunters before. Their eyes glowed faintly under their helmets. And weapons crackled with energy. One pointed at her. "There she is. Take the girl." Her heart pounded, her breath ragged. She clung to the human's jacket. Panic flooding her veins. The human stepped forward, hand resting on his weapon, but before he could move, the attackers rushed in, fast, too fast. One reached for her arm, and in that moment, everything changed. A burning heat surged through her chest, her vision blurred, her hands shaking, and then, a flash pure light exploding outward. The alien who touched her screamed as he was thrown back against the wall. The others stumbled, shielding their eyes from the sudden glow. The girl collapsed to her knees, gasping, her body trembling with fear. She looked down at her hands, still glowing faintly, sparks of strange energy dancing across her skin. "No, no, no, no," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. This was the curse. The reason no one wanted her. This power she could not control. This power that made her dangerous. She expected him to step back, to look at her with the same disgust the others had. Her whole body shook, waiting for rejection. But instead, the human crouched beside her, calm, steady. His hand rested lightly on her shoulder. "Unafraid, I see now," he said softly. His voice carried no fear, no hatred, only a strange certainty. As if he had been waiting for this, the attackers groaned, pulling themselves to their feet, but when they saw the glow fading from her hands, they hesitated. Fear flickered in their eyes, fear not of the human, but of her. One spat on the ground, "She is cursed. She will bring ruin." And then, with one final glare, they vanished into the shadows, unwilling to face her again. The street was quiet once more. The girl sat trembling, hugging herself, whispering, "I didn't want this. I didn't want this." Her tears ran hot down her cheeks. She expected him to leave her there, broken and cursed, but he stayed beside her. Silent, at last, he spoke. "Now I see why they feared you." She looked at him, her eyes wide and wet. "You're not afraid?" she asked, her voice shaking. He shook his head. "No," he said firmly. And in that moment, she realized something. He was the first person who had ever looked at her power and not turned away. Hope flickered inside her, small but alive, perhaps. She was not worthless, not trash. Perhaps her story was only beginning. And with this strange human by her side, the galaxy itself might soon discover who she really was. The night stretched long as they left the city's heart behind. The glowing signs faded, replaced by quiet streets and broken buildings far above. Ships passed across the dark sky, their engines rumbling like thunder. The girl walked close to the human, her hands trembling, still afraid of what she had done. She could not forget the flash, the light that had exploded from her body. The hunters thrown aside by a power she did not understand. Her skin still tingled as if the strange energy lingered beneath it. She pulled the jacket tighter around herself, wishing she could hide from her own body. The human led her into an abandoned shelter made of stone and steel. The door was half broken, but it kept the wind out inside. The air smelled of rust and dust. He searched the corners carefully, making sure no one followed. Only when he was certain did he sit down. By the cold wall, the girl stood in silence, hugging herself, her voice breaking at last. "You saw it. You saw what I did," she whispered. Her eyes were wide, filled with fear. "You know now why no one wants me, why they call me cursed." The human looked at her, calm, his expression unreadable. "Yes, I saw," he said, his voice even. She waited for the words that always came after the disgust, the anger, the order to leave. But instead he added, "And I saw something else." She blinked, confused. "What?" "That you are not weak," he said simply. The words cut through her like fire. Not weak. No one had ever said that to her before. Her throat tightened, and she shook her head quickly. "No, you don't understand. I can't control it. It hurts people. Her voice cracked. "It makes me a monster." The human leaned forward slightly, his voice steady. "A monster doesn't fear hurting others," he said. "You do. That is the difference." His words were firm, and for the first time, she felt that maybe he believed in her. She sank to the floor, hugging her knees. Memories surfaced, broken and sharp. "I was with them. The ones who owned me before," she whispered. "They tried to use me. They wanted my power, but when I lost control, they called me dangerous." Her voice trembled. "They left me, naked, in the market." And laughed. The human did not interrupt. He listened, his eyes steady, his silence telling her to go on. Her tears ran hot down her face. But for once, speaking felt less like breaking and more like release. "They all hated me," she whispered. "They said I was nothing." When she finished, her chest felt empty, her body weak. She waited for his reply, her heart heavy. At last, he said, "If you were nothing, they wouldn't fear you." She lifted her head slowly, her breath catching. Fear, yes, she had seen it in the hunter's eyes. In the way even the merchants whispered. Could fear mean she was not worthless, but dangerous? And if dangerous, then maybe powerful. The human stood, adjusting his cloak. "You have power, but no control," he said. "That can change." She stared at him, confused. "Change? How?" He looked down at her, his voice calm and certain. "Control comes from training, from choice, not fear." Her heart pounded. Training. No one had ever tried to teach her. No one had cared, but he spoke as if it was possible, as if she was more than a curse. The next morning, the human led her to a quiet place outside the city walls. The ground was dry and cracked, the air sharp and cold. "Stand there," he said, pointing to the open space. She obeyed, nervous, her hands shaking. "What if I hurt you?" she whispered. His eyes narrowed, a faint smirk touching his lips. "Then I'll know you need practice." He placed a broken bottle on a rock. "Focus on it," he said. "Not on me, not on your fear." She stared at the bottle, her breath quick, her hands tingled, sparks of faint light dancing at her fingertips. The memory of the hunters filled her mind, the terror, the energy bursting from her without control. Her chest tightened, her body trembling. "I can't," she whispered, shaking her head. "You can," he replied, his voice sharp, steady. "Fear does not rule you. unless you let it. Her eyes widened at his tone. It was not gentle now, but commanding. Something in his voice cut through her panic. She took a breath, closed her eyes, and tried again. The energy flickered, weak, but real, a glow shimmering in her palms. The bottle rattled, shaking on the rock, her breath caught. It's moving, she whispered. Good, he said. Again, she tried once more, and this time the bottle shattered, fragments scattering across the dirt. Her eyes flew open, shock and fear mixing with something else. Pride. I did it, she whispered, her lips trembling into the smallest of smiles. The human nodded once, his expression calm, but his eyes told her he was pleased. You're not a curse, he said. You're a weapon. The question is, who will hold it to, or those who hunt you? Her chest rose and fell quickly, her heart beating fast. For the first time, she felt something new strength. It was small, fragile, but it was hers. She looked at him, whispering, Will you? Will you teach me? He met her eyes, his voice steady as stone. Yes. But remember, this strength has a cost. The wind moved across the empty land. Carrying dust and silence, she stood straighter, her fear still inside her, but not as heavy. For so long she had been nothing but broken, forgotten, abandoned, but now, under his watchful eyes, she felt the first signs of something else. Not weakness, not curse, but strength. The days passed slowly. Each morning, the human led her out to the empty land beyond the broken city. There, under the pale sun, she practiced with trembling hands. Her energy flickered and sparked, sometimes too weak, sometimes too wild, but little by little, she began to feel it like a fire she could almost touch. The human never raised his voice, but his words were sharp. Breathe slower. Focus. Don't let fear take your hand. At first, she failed again and again, the sparks dying before they reached their mark. But each failure was met not with laughter, not with cruelty, but with steady silence. And that silence gave her something new: patience with herself. One evening, she managed to lift a heavy stone. Her eyes widened as it floated in the air, glowing faintly with her power. It trembled, then fell, breaking into the dirt. Her chest heaved, her body weak, but a small smile touched her lips. She had done it on purpose, not by accident. The human only nodded, his voice calm. Better. That night, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling of their shelter. For the first time, she did not dream of chains or laughter. She dreamed of light, and though she woke in sweat, her heart carried something fragile, but real hope. But peace never lasted, not in this place. On the fourth night, the silence of the city broke. The ground trembled as heavy boots marched through the streets. Voices echoed in alien tongues, cold and sharp. The girl froze, clutching the jacket tight around her. They've found us, she whispered. The human was already moving. He looked out the window, his jaw set. Hunters, he said, his voice low in the distance. Armored figures searched the alleys, their weapons glowing faintly. Torches of white fire burned in their hands. They were not hiding anymore. They wanted her. And they wanted her fast. The human took her arm gently, pulling her toward the back door. Stay close, he ordered. Her heart pounded, her legs weak, but she followed. They slipped through the shadows, moving from one ruined wall to the next. But the hunters were many, their voices rising, their footsteps closing in. At last, they reached the edge of the city. Beyond lay the dry land where she had trained, empty and open. To open, the hunters saw them and shouted, their boots striking the ground in unison. The human drew his blade, his stance calm, but his eyes sharp as fire. They'll come for you, he told her, and they'll keep coming. She swallowed hard, fear twisting her stomach. What do I do? His voice was steady. Without doubt, fight. The hunters rushed forward, their weapons flashing with alien light. The human met the first one, steel against steel. The clash rang loud, sparks flying in the dark. He moved like water, every strike clean, every block certain, but there were too many. 3 broke past him, racing straight for her. The girl stepped back, her hands shaking. Her breath came fast, her mind screaming, I can't. I'll lose control. One hunter reached for her arm. The moment his hand touched her skin, the fire inside her erupted. A blast of light exploded outward. The hunter was thrown back, his armor smoking, his scream echoing in the night. The other 2 froze, their eyes wide behind their masks. She gasped, staring at her own glowing hands. The power was stronger now, brighter, like a storm raging inside her, but unlike before, it did not burn her completely. It felt like it wanted direction. The human's voice cut through the chaos. Don't run from it, he shouted, striking another enemy aside. Guide it. Her body shook, but his words anchored her. She raised her hands, her heart pounding. The energy burst forward. Not wild this time, but focused. It struck the ground before the hunters, splitting the dirt into cracks of glowing fire. The hunters stumbled, fear flashing in their eyes. For a moment, silence filled the field. The girl stood breathing hard, the glow fading slowly from her skin. She looked at her hands, trembling. I did that, she whispered. The human stepped to her side, his blade still in hand. Yes, he said. You did? The remaining hunters hesitated, then began to retreat. They dragged their fallen comrade back into the shadows, their voices low with fear. One shouted as they disappeared, She is cursed. She will destroy us all. And then they were gone, leaving only the broken silence behind. The girl collapsed to her knees, her chest heaving, her eyes wide, wet with tears. I hurt them, she whispered. I didn't mean to, but I... The human crouched in front of her, meeting her eyes. You defended yourself, he said firmly. That's different. Her lips trembled, her breath shaking. I thought I couldn't control it, she said. He placed a hand on her shoulder. Steady and sure. You can, he replied. You just proved it. The words sank into her heart like fire. For the first time, she was not terrified of her power. For the first time, she felt the smallest spark of pride. Maybe she was not a curse. Not just a weapon. Maybe she was something more. She looked at him, her voice soft, uncertain. Will they keep coming? His eyes were sharp, his jaw hard. Yes, he said. But now, you're not the same girl they left in the market. Her chest tightened, a strange warmth rising in her. She was still afraid, but she was no longer only afraid. That night, as they moved deeper into the wastelands, she walked beside him, her steps stronger than before. The hunters would return, more powerful, more ruthless. But now, for the first time, she believed she could stand against them. Her power was no longer only fear. It was possibility, and with the human at her side, she would learn how far it could take her. The wastelands stretched far, endless and dry. Broken towers rose from the sand like the bones of giants. The wind carried dust across the empty land, whispering through the ruins of old battles. Here, way from the crowded city and the merchants. Cruel voices. The girl felt both safer and more alone. She walked beside the human. Her steps slower, but steadier than before. Her body still ached from using her power. But her heart carried something new, confidence. She remembered the glow in her hands, the fear in the hunter's eyes, the way she had stood her ground. It felt unreal, yet it was true. She had fought back, and she had not lost control completely. They camped inside the hollow shell of a ruined building. The human started a small fire from broken wood. The flames sharp against the cold night. The girl sat near the fire, pulling the jacket tight around herself. Her eyes followed him as he cleaned his blade with slow, careful hands. At last, she spoke, her voice quiet. "You could have left." Me again, back there, when the hunters came, he did not look up. "I told you," he said simply. "I don't leave people behind." The words were calm, but they cut deep inside her. She lowered her eyes, her throat tight, for so long. Everyone had left her, abandoned her when she became too dangerous, too much trouble, but this man did not walk away. No matter the risk, she watched the fire, her voice breaking softly. "Why me? Out of everyone in that market, why choose me?" The human finally lifted his eyes. He studied her for a long moment before answering. "Because you reminded me of something I almost forgot." Her brow furrowed. "What?" His gaze drifted to the fire, his expression unreadable. "That? Even the smallest spark can burn the darkest night." She blinked at his words, her chest tight with something she could not name. For a long time, neither of them spoke, the fire crackling in the silence. At last, she whispered, "No one has ever said something like that to me." The human gave no reply, but his silence was not cold, was steady, like a wall she could lean on. The next day, he began to teach her more, not just how to use her power, but how to survive. "Listen to the ground," he said, kneeling, pressing his hand against the dirt. "It tells you if someone is coming." He showed her how to hide her steps, how to breathe quietly, how to watch the horizon. These were not lessons of a master to a student. They were lessons of survival, of trust. At first, she stumbled often, her hands clumsy, her steps loud, but he never mocked her, never grew angry. He corrected her with few words, steady and patient, and little by little, she began to learn. One evening, as the sun bled red across the wasteland, he placed a stone in her palm and said, "Lift it." Not with fear, with will. She closed her eyes, breathing slow, her hands tingling. The stone trembled, then rose, glowing faintly. She gasped, her lips curling into a small smile. "I did it again," she whispered. The human nodded. "Good." Again tomorrow. Her heart swelled with quiet pride for the first time in her life. Someone believed she could be more than broken, and for the first time, she believed it too. But not everything was training in silence. Sometimes, when the fire burned low at night, she asked questions. "Where do you come from?" "It's far from here," he answered simply. "Why do you fight?" His eyes darkened, and after a pause, he said, "Because I have lost before. I won't lose again." She did not understand everything, but she heard the weight in his voice. Pain, loss, memories that still haunted him. And in that moment, she realized he carried scars of his own, different from hers, but scars all the same. The bond between them grew quietly, like roots under the soil. She began to trust his steps, his voice, the way he always stood between her and danger. And he began to trust her too, testing her strength, letting her face small dangers on her own. Each day, the space between them grew smaller, not of distance, but of fear. But danger never slept. One night, as the wind howled through the ruins, she woke to the sound of footsteps. The human was already awake, his blade in his hand. Figures moved in the shadows. Hunters again, but more cautious now. "They don't give up," he muttered. Her heart raced, but this time she did not only feel fear, she felt anger too. Anger that they would never let her be free. He glanced at her, his voice steady. "Stay behind me if you must. Or stand beside me if you're ready." Her breath caught, her hands glowing faintly in the dark. She looked at him, then at the shadows, moving closer. And for the first time, she whispered, "I'll stand beside you." The hunters charged, and together they faced them. His blade struck with precision. Her light burned with fury. Side by side, they pushed back the darkness, and when the last hunter fled, broken and afraid, she turned to him, her chest heaving, her hands trembling but steady. She realized then that she was no longer just following him. She was walking with him that night, as they sat by the fire again. She whispered, "You're not just saving me anymore. We're saving each other." The human looked at her, his eyes steady. "Maybe that's what survival really is," he said. Not being alone, her heart ached. But not with fear this time, with something warmer, stronger. The bond was real now, and in it, she found something she thought she had lost forever. Hope. The wastelands were silent. Only the wind moved across the broken ground, carrying dust into the night. The girl and the human walked side by side, their firelight fading behind them. For days they had escaped, fought, and trained. But now the air felt heavier, as if the world itself was holding its breath. The girl felt it in her chest. Danger was coming. Not the small groups of hunters they had faced before, but something larger, stronger, final. Her hands trembled as she pulled the jacket closer. "Do you think they'll stop?" she whispered. The human's eyes narrowed, his voice calm but sharp. "No. They'll keep coming until we make them stop." That night, the answer came. The sky glowed with strange lights as ships descended. Engines roared, shaking the ground. From the horizon, an army marched, hunters, merchants, even alien lords with golden masks. They came together, united by fear and greed. And at the center of their voices was the same cry, "Give us the girl." The girl's knees weakened, her heart hammering. So many of them, their weapons shining. Their eyes filled with hate. She looked at the human, her voice breaking. "There are too many. We can't fight them all." But he stood tall, blade at his side, his voice steady as stone. "Then, we don't run. We stand." The army stopped only a short distance away. A merchant with scaled skin stepped forward, the same one who had once mocked her in the market. His voice was loud, sharp. "She is cursed. She is dangerous. Hand her over, human, or you will die with her." The girl shook her head, tears stinging her eyes. She expected him to give her away, to finally let her go. But instead, the human stepped forward, his voice carrying like thunder. "You had your chance," he said. "You called her worthless. You left her to die. And now you fear her because she is more than you'll ever be." The crowd hissed, angry and afraid. The lords raised their staffs, power crackling in the air. The hunters lifted their weapons, ready to strike. The girl's hands glowed faintly, her body trembling. I can't," she whispered, her fear rising, but the human's voice cut through her panic. "You can, 'cause you are not alone." Her breath caught, his words wrapping around her like armor. Not alone. For the first time, she believed it. The first wave of hunters charged, blades flashing. The human moved like a storm, his steel cutting through the dark. She stood frozen at first, her fear gripping her. But then she saw him, one man against an army, standing firm, not just for himself, but for her. Her chest burned, and her power surged. She raised her hands, light spilling into the night. The ground shook as her energy burst outward, throwing the hunters back. The crowd roared in anger. But fear rippled through them too. They had wanted a weak girl, a slave, a curse to control. Instead, they faced a weapon they could not cage. The lords stepped forward, their staffs glowing. Bolts of energy streaked through the air. The human deflected one with his blade. But another came too fast. The girl screamed, raising her hands. The blast stopped in midair, trapped inside a sphere of her light. It burned and shook. But she pushed harder, her teeth clenched. With a cry, she hurled it back. The explosion lit the wasteland, throwing the lords to the ground. The army staggered, their cries breaking. Some shouted to fight harder, others began to retreat. The girl fell to her knees, panting, her body weak. I can't hold it much longer," she whispered. The human crouched beside her, steadying her shoulders. Yes, you can, he said firmly, his eyes burning. Not because you have power, but because you have choice. Choose to fight. Choose to live. Her tears fell, but her heart burned with fire. For so long she had been told she was nothing, but now she knew she was something. Not a curse, not trash, not forgotten. She was alive, and she mattered. Together they rose. Side by side, the human with his blade, the girl with her light. And when the army surged again, they faced it as one. The battle roared through the night, steel and fire, screams and thunder. But every time the girl faltered, he was there, and every time he weakened, her light rose to protect him. At last, the army broke. Hunters fled into the shadows. Merchants screamed and ran. The lords, burned and broken, were dragged back to their ships. The wasteland was silent, once more filled only with smoke and the sound of their breaths. The girl stood trembling, her body weak. She looked at the human, her voice soft, breaking. They will come again. He nodded, his voice calm. Then we'll be ready. She stared at him, her chest tightening with something she could not name. You didn't have to fight for me, she whispered. He met her eyes, his voice steady. I did, because in this galaxy, when no one else remembers your worth. A human will, her lips trembled, her tears fell. But for once, they were not only tears of fear, they were tears of hope. She was no longer the girl abandoned in the market, no longer the one left without clothes, without value, without a future. She was something more, and as the human stood firm beside her, she knew her story was only beginning.